from the perspective of the entrepreneur on what's working and what's not working. So the COO is often the bridge. They're like the glue between the vision and the execution and being able to weave in that softer side, right? That EQ component, not just, structure and project plans and deadlines and deliverables and everything else. It's both.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
You have to have to attach the operation to that, because that this thing is thick is not enough.
Yeah.
Are you able to design a process that, or supervise, or a process that make it consistency, which is something that have nothing to do with the creative part, right?
Yeah.
The entrepreneur is good because what we're talking about, until you get to product market fit, which is this podcast, the main topic.
Yeah.
You have to try different things, and you have to be in communication. And this is why the CEO and the CEO have to be direct in communication.
Correct.
Because he had to get the feedback from you. And this is the challenge that I will ask you a question, right? That we have sometimes the founders, okay, or the CEO, that they have that vision and the idea, okay? But then you guys, on the other hand, running the operation, you know what the clients want and what they're willing to pay for. Because the operation will give you this data, right?
Yeah.
And in some point, the operation and the CEO, they need to align together and say, look, let's keep it tight, at least to make the first million, to get the product market fit, right? Because now this is a moment to keep it tight.
Yeah.
We already throw enough spaghetti.
Yeah.
We know what it sticks, right?
Yeah.
And they sometimes they to try to. That's why they have to be in very good communication, because
of course,
if the entrepreneur keep creating and creating, you can be into something good, and because the creator never thought to create, make it worse.
Yeah,
that's what happened even in my own business, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes when something works, we have to keep it tight, right?
Yeah.
So we try. But when something, and that is when you need a good operation, a good CEO, to connect this is key.
Yeah, I call it, it's your strategic thought partner, right? So they can sit on the shoulder of the entrepreneur, not to stifle the idea, but to give space to create the idea, knowing that there's that execution engine that's available in the operation. So they are the ones that I often say, like your trusted thought partner. They can live in the strategy, they can live in the vision, but they're also thinking about it in terms of the day-to-day. What needs to happen?
Absolutely.
What's the plan? What's the execution? What does it really look like?
How much it's gonna cost?
Exactly.
How much it's gonna cost? Because you gotta have the product, whatever. Yeah, but is it gonna eat the budget for marketing? How much is gonna cost this new idea?
Yeah.
Rarely we have this type of a stage job type, like, oh, we will create something and everybody will follow. Well, it works for him.
Yeah.
And maybe for 2 or 3 more, but the whole dynamic of business itself is more about the CEO being and the COO being in a communication, and when the product is out there and actually stick and it works, keep it tight, and at least until you get your first million and you get to market
exactly
fit.
Right.
After, you can start to divide, and still it depends on the operation, sales, marketing, process, and also the accounts and everything. So, Derek, tell us your story, why you decided to become an entrepreneur and why you decided to have this business.
Yeah, so I didn't get started in entrepreneurship. Full disclosure, I was not, somebody that kind of fell into entrepreneurship. I got started actually, my pre-entrepreneurial journey, if you will, was actually on Wall Street. I had kind of a corporate job. That was where I thought I was going to end up. But I actually left the day-to-day of my corporate job and then actually joined as the COO in my wife's business coaching company. She had reached her first seven figures. This was back in 2008, and needed somebody to help kind of run the day-to-day, kind of create the structure of how we're going to continue to scale. So that's how I got started in the kind of operator COO world. And I had been doing that for the last, 16 years, running other people's companies, being the operator, the kind of
Wow.
the one that had the blueprint of how to scale a multiple seven-figure company. That's just kind of what I've been built out. But I wanted to do that more beyond just myself because I was doing it fractional, like I was a fractional COO, and I could only do so much when it was just dependent upon me. So in 2024, I very deliberately took off the COO operator hat, put on the CEO visionary hat, and launched the COO solution to provide fractional COO services that are for companies
Very
that are
good.
scaling at 7 to 8 figures. And right
I
now,
done the role myself.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I've been CEO of a company, so I know what you're
yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. So I have
So,
the ability to see both. I get the operator mindset, but I also get the CEO kind of entrepreneur visionary mindset. And I think, like you were sharing, the part of the reason why I think this dynamic works really, really well, especially for companies that are at that seven-figure mark and especially beyond, is that a really good COO is going to, yeah, focus on what needs to happen to grow and scale. 2x, new revenue streams, new market opportunities. It's not just the what, but we focus even more so on the how they're doing what they're doing to grow and scale, because the how is the structure, the systems, the process, the right people in the right seats. It's all of these things that business owners, entrepreneurs, they don't jump out of bed in the morning and be like, I want to create more structure. I want more systems and process. It feels like it's a box. They don't want to live in a box. They want to be able to create, but they need the container to be able to have that foundation and those fundamentals in place so that we can look at things. I often say, like, we look at the hood, open up the hood of your business, right? What's working? Great. Why is that working? And let's do more of that. But let's also look at like what's not working and no judgment, but why is that not working? Who owns the fact that that's not working? So there's a culture of accountability, and then be able to look at how do we fix it, update, change it, remove it to do less of what's not working and more of what is working in order to grow and scale. And companies, founders, they usually don't have the time to think about it because they're so focused on like where we're going, right? That plane has already left the building, it's left the runway, but they need somebody to help land the plane that's going to move that forward. So it's a really key dynamic that CEO and COO partnership works really, really well.
and the CEO also, Derek, you need to have an element, a strong element of emotional intelligence because you have
Of
to be able
course.
to connect with everyone, and
Yeah.
which is not necessarily is a key that or maybe the CEO needs to have some emotional intelligence, but is
Mhm.
he won't define the role, but the
Yeah.
COO because he had to connect and with everybody in the company, and he had to make sure that communicate effectively,
Of
to
course.
connect, to build relationships, and then you have in companies you have sales and marketing department, then you have the accounts
Yeah.
department, then you have the supply and the product department, and then you
Yeah.
have HR department,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you have to and they all have different backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't talk with an accountant with the same way that you talk with the marketing and sales, right?
Of course. Of course. Right. They're all different.
And
Yeah. The COO
you
is
have to
like,
connect with them.
yeah.
Yeah.
The COO is like that. I often say they're like the air traffic controller, right? So they just don't look at operations. They're looking at marketing, sales, operations, and finance. And I always say they start with
The whole
marketing.
operation is
Yeah, the
literally
mark
the whole operation,
the whole company.
the
Exactly.
whole
Exactly.
company.
Yeah. And they need to look at that in the perspective of, and I always start with marketing because I do feel that marketing is the driver. Without marketing, nothing else really exists,
I
right?
agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you. In that one, I'm rooting for you. Marketing and sales, especially if it's in a startup,
Yeah.
we need to. This one is the first one that we have to tune, right?
Yeah.
And we got to get involved directly in the company that,
Yeah, but
like I
the
said, that I done
EQ,
the wrong.
yeah,
Yeah,
the EQ that you mentioned is huge because, yeah, I mean, we're talking about strategy, tactics, project management, SOPs, all the stuff that, yeah, it's needed. That's like the black and white. But then there's this softer component, right? Because at the end of the day, that COO needs to be able to be that trusted second in command, to have those difficult conversations with the founder to help them kind of ideate what the vision's going to be. And they also need to be able to have those difficult conversations with different team members in different roles, right? So this is about elevating up how the business is operating. It's not just a matter of, I often say when we work with companies, we don't step into the company and like shake the tree of the business to get things to fall, right? That's not a recipe for success, but it's understanding under the hood, under the surface, what's working, what's not working, and being able to have those conversations with the people that are running the day to day. Like they're the ones that are the boots on the ground, and their perspective of what's working and what's not working is often very different from the perspective of the entrepreneur on what's working and what's not working. So the COO is often the bridge. They're like the glue between the vision and the execution, and being able to weave in that softer side, right? That EQ component, not just structure and project plans and deadlines and deliverables and everything else. It's both.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.